Welcome to the Jayda InStitches show, and welcome to May. It is time for the 5th installment in our 2024 calendar blanket, Granny's Magical Cupboard. We are making 12 unique granny squares this year, one per month, and for May we are going to make the framed granny. The framed granny gets its name, I suppose, from the alternating rows of the very familiar shell stitch and solid double crochet stitch. So those two most basic granny squares are kind of merged together, and by alternating between those two rows you get this framed look to that classic shell stitch pattern. Now this is an infinitely upsizable square, so you can just keep repeating those two rows as many times as you want to make a really big granny. I know some of you are making granny squares that are different number of rows than the one I'm making. I'm making 6-row grannies. These are 8 inches. But you can upsize this one indefinitely. And if you're using this particular pattern for a completely different project, it doesn't matter which row you end on. You can end on a shell stitch row, or you can end on a solid double crochet row. So, you know, if you're making it for a specific purpose, it doesn't really matter. But I do like the way it looks when you finish with the double crochet, solid double crochet row, because that's ultimately that framed look that gives this square its name. I'm going to be demonstrating today's pattern using 3 different colors. So I will be changing colors for each of those 3 colors twice, so every row. I also have one where I just used 2 colors and I alternated each row, which I really like too. That really brings out that framed look because it's always the same color that is operating as the frame. Mr. InStitches has some extra photos he will put in here for you. But you can really get a different look with this square by changing the frequency of your color change. So I've done, again, another 2-color square, but I made the color change every 2 rows, which really changes the look of it again. And there's a couple different ways you can approach changing color in the square, which I will explain in the tutorial. And you can also make it in a solid color. If you make it in a solid color, the pattern itself kind of comes to the fore. You really see sort of the open work of that shell stitch, but then it's, you know, interrupted by the solid work of the solid double crochet. I made one in cotton. This is a cotton version. Same hook, same weight of yarn, but this one came out a little bigger than the other ones, probably because of the cotton yarn I'm using. I'm using this in the kitchen. This is going to probably operate as a hot pad on my kitchen countertop. I just like the pattern so much. Anyway, there's a slight difference in how you approach the beginning of a row depending on whether you are going solid crochet or solid color, or not changing colors at the end of a row. Maybe you're doing, you know, 2 rows of the same color, or if you are changing colors every row. There's a few ways you can approach changing color in this pattern, which I will also explain in the tutorial. And speaking of the tutorial, let's get to that. Let's grab our hooks, we'll grab our yarn, we'll head on over to the craft table, and we'll stitch it up together.
Easily find all of our crochet tutorials. Type youtube.com/JaydaInStitches into your web browser and we'll see you there.
For today's granny square, you're going to need approximately 40 yards in total of your yarn. So I'm using 3 colors. That works out to be around 12 to 15 yards per color. If you're using 2 colors, it's around 20 yards, and if you're making it larger, you're going to need more. I'm using a size 4 medium weight acrylic yarn. You're going to want a pair of scissors, a yarn needle. I'm using a 5.5mm hook, also known as an eye or a 9, and you may also find having some stitch markers are handy as well. Once you've got all that together, we can get started. Before we get started, some very important notes on color and color changing. If you're going to make a solid color square like this one, I will explain as we go throughout the tutorial where each row begins, because it's a little different for a solid color square. But once you get the hang of it, it will be very self-explanatory, so it's not complicated. So if you want to make a solid color square, feel free to do that. I will be demonstrating a color change square today in which I finish a row, fasten off, and join my new color with a slip stitch in a corner. So I would begin each row in a corner, and I would start with the corner directions before I finish off the rest of the row. There are 2 other ways, however, that you can change colors if you are a little more advanced and a little more comfortable playing with the pattern. In this one, I did 2 rows per color. So instead of fastening off and then joining my new color in a corner, I decided to carry it. So when I didn't need the color anymore, I dropped it. I began the next row with the new color, and as I slip stitched to join that row, I would catch the dropped color and just carried it up the back. So I end up with a little bit of a reach, but if you're not too worried about how the back of your squares look, this is a nice option if you don't want to cut yarn, rejoin, and kind of go through that whole thing. The other option you have though is to finish a color, join your new color in a corner, and as you work and finish a row, slip stitch into the corner and begin with the same color in that corner following the corner instructions. So I will be giving you start from the corner instructions and also start from where you left off instructions throughout this tutorial. So you have a lot of options to choose from in regards to how you change your colors and if and when you want to change your colors, or if you just want to do it in a solid. Today's square consists of 2 repeating rows. Odd rows, which are shell stitch rows, and even rows, which are solid double crochet rows. You can repeat these 2 rows, odd, even, as many times as you want to make a square as large as you like. So this square does upsize infinitely. Something to keep in mind, if you're on a shell stitch row, your corners are 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet, chain 1. If you're on an even or a solid double crochet row, your corners are 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. We are going to begin with a classic granny square row 1. Let's put a slip knot on our hook and chain 5. We're going to take that chain 5 and turn it into a ring by slip stitching to join with the first chain we made. That little ring will fit over your finger, and we're going to build all of row 1 into this ring. We chain 3 to begin. Every row begins with a chain 3, and that chain 3 always counts as a double crochet. We complete our first shell by double crocheting twice more into that ring. So chain 3, 2 double crochet, that equals our first shell of our shell stitch row. Chain 2 for a corner, and into this ring we're going to work 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 more times. At the end of row 1, you'll have 4 shells and 4 chain 2 spaces. You're going to join with a slip stitch to the top of that chain 3. And if you are not changing colors, you're just going to stay where you are. You're going to chain 3 and double crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. That'll bring you up to the corner space, and that's where you'll hook up with the rest of us. If you are changing colors, you can snip your yarn like I've done, fasten off, weave in your tail if you want to, and grab your new color. We're all going to start in this corner space. Like I said, if you're not changing colors, you've just chained 3 and double crocheted into each of those next 2 stitches. We'll hook up with you in that corner. I'm going to take my next color now, which is going to be blue. I'm starting with a slip knot on my hook, and in the corner space I'm going to join with a slip stitch and chain 3. If you were not changing colors and you chained 3 right where you joined your last row, you double crocheted into each of the next 2 stitches, and now you can double crochet into the corner space. That is the same thing as the rest of us, joining with a slip stitch and chaining 3. This is a solid double crochet row. We're going to double crochet into the corner, chain 2, and work 2 more double crochets all into the corner. So whether you changed color or not, your corner should be 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. If you didn't change color, then you've already got the first 3 stitches in your solid double crochet row in addition to your new corner. Anytime you leave a corner in this pattern, I recommend you pull back on your corner stitches to make sure you can see the top of the next stitch. This is important whether you are doing a solid double crochet row or a shell stitch row, because you still want to make sure you see that, whether you're working into it or just counting it. And I'll explain more of that when we get to row 3. But this is a solid double crochet row. You should know the drill. If you've done a solid double crochet granny square, you are just double crocheting into each of those stitches. I'm working over top of my little short tails here. I like to do that because it saves me weaving them in when I'm done. When you get to the chain 2 space, you're going to work 2 double crochet, chain 2, and 2 double crochet. That is a solid double crochet or an even row corner. 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. You will finish this row by working a double crochet into each of the stitches from the shell stitch from the previous row. So 1 double crochet per stitch. Easy peasy. And when you get to a chain 2 corner, it's a solid double crochet row, so the corner gets 2 double crochet, chain 2, and 2 double crochet. Each side will have 7 stitches and of course your 2 chain 2 corners. So you can go ahead, add a double crochet into each stitch. Make sure you do your 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet corners, and I'll catch up with you back at the beginning. If you didn't change colors and you just started row 2 right from where you joined, when you finish your last corner, 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet, you'll be right back at the beginning. So you will join with a slip stitch to the top of that chain 3. For the rest of us, when you finish your last corner, you've got 3 more stitches to fill in. So you're just going to double crochet into each of those remaining stitches, and that will bring you up to your chain 3. So it doesn't really matter where you start the row. Everybody joins with a slip stitch to the top of the chain 3. You will have 7 double crochet across each side, and you'll have 4 chain 2 corners. If you are changing colors, you're going to snip your yarn, fasten off, and I will hook up with you in the corner. You can join your new color here. If you are not changing colors, you joined with a slip stitch right here. You want to start your next row in this stitch. So you will slip stitch into the middle stitch, making sure it's the stitch directly above the middle stitch of the shell from the previous row. So you will start right here, chain 3, work 2 double crochet into the same space, and chain 1. That will give you your first shell in the row, and then you will hook up with the rest of us in the corner. I'll see you all in a second. If you're joining a new color, I like to join my colors with a slip stitch in the corner. We are back to an odd row or a shell stitch row, so chain 3 to begin the row. The chain 3 always starts a row and it always counts as a double crochet, and you want to start a shell stitch row with finishing off your first shell, so you work 2 more double crochets to finish off your first shell. Now, if you didn't change colors, your first shell is over here. Chain 3, 2 double crochet, right into that middle stitch that's above the middle stitch from the shell of the row previous. Chain 3, 2 double crochet, chain 1 right there. You skip 3 stitches and find yourself in the corner. So you work 3 double crochet into the corner space, and now we're all in the same place. We're going to finish that corner, chain 2, and before we leave, 3 more double crochet, shell, chain 2, shell is the corner, and we're going to chain 1. So before you leave any shell from here on out, chain 1. 3 double crochet, chain 1, doesn't matter where you are, 3 double crochet, chain 1, unless you're in a corner, and then it's 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet, chain 1. Every row gets a chain 2 corner space. That is the one consistent thing throughout this pattern. We are back to shell stitches, so I want you to think in terms of 3, 3, 3, 3. We all skip the next 3 stitches. So this is why I say it's always helpful to pull back so that you don't miss the top of the next stitch. 1, 2, 3, skip, find the next stitch, and work 3 double crochet into it. And the middle of the row is where all the solid color granny crew started. So this will look familiar to you. 3 double crochet, chain 1. That is all worked into this stitch, which is directly above the middle stitch of a shell. So going forward, if you are kind of confused and you're trying to figure out where your shell is, you are always skipping 3 stitches. So shell stitches are exactly 3 stitches apart, always. And the shell will always be worked into a stitch that is directly on top of the middle stitch of a shell from the previous row. So this next row coming is a solid double crochet row, but the row after that will be shells, and each of those shells will start in a double crochet stitch that is directly above the stitch from the middle stitch of the shell from the previous row. So always look for that kind of alignment. That will help keep you on track. Notice too, shells are always 3 stitches apart, even when they're small, and when you come out of a corner, you see how that kind of covers that stitch? If you pull back on it, you'll see that it's right there. But since we're using double crochet, sometimes it's easy just to sort of count the posts in between. 1, 2, 3, 3 stitches between shells. All right, back to the one at hand. Don't forget to chain 1 after you work your last shell. Skip 3 stitches. Oh, we're in a corner. So shell, stitch, rows, get, shell, chain 2, shell, chain 1 in the corner. 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet, and chain 1. Because now for our shell stitch rows going forward, we want to make sure that we've got little chain 1 spaces in between our shells on the straights, and that will keep our stitch count where we need it to be. So 3 stitches at the end of row 1 per side, 7 stitches at the end of row 2 per side, but we're back to the shell stitch, so it's a little sort of, it can be kind of forgetful that we have this little chain 1 in between, but technically we have the same stitch count in row 3 as we have at the end of row 3 in all of our other squares. So you've got 3 shells, that's 9 stitches, plus the chain 1s in between, that's 11. So 3, 7, 11, and 11 stitches is what's across each side of every row 3 in every square in this series. Don't forget, when you finish this corner, pull back, make sure you're skipping 3 stitches, find the next one, and work 3 double crochet, chain 1 into it. And if you get lost and you're not sure, make sure you count 3 stitches skipped, and that stitch should always be directly above the middle stitch of the shell from the row before. Don't forget your chain 1s in between. When you get to a corner, 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet, chain 1. It's your standard granny shell stitch row, but this time, instead of looking for spaces, oops, I didn't chain 2, want to chain 2. This time, instead of looking for spaces, you're just skipping 3 stitches. So you finish your last shell, chain 1, skip 3 stitches, and work a shell or 3 double crochet, chain 1 into the next stitch. That's all you need to do for row 3. And I will hook up with you at the end. Once you've finished your last corner, 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet, chain 1. If you didn't change colors, you are right back where you started. You are looking at a shell, you are looking at your chain 3 that began, you are going to join to that chain 3. For the rest of us who did change colors and started in a corner, we have one more shell to do. So skip 3 stitches, work your final shell, 3 double crochet, and chain 1. Now we get to join with a slip stitch in the top of the chain 3. Everybody is at the end of row 3. You've got 3 shells per side. If you are making precise counts, don't forget to include your little chain 1s in between. You'll have 11 stitches in total. So 3 shells or 9 double crochet but 2 extra chain 1 spaces. That's 11 stitches all together. If you are changing colors, fasten off. If you are not changing colors, you will be right back here. So you will just chain 3 where you are and start double crocheting into each stitch and the chain 1 space and each of the next 3 stitches until you get to the corner. And you guys can catch up with us, or we'll catch up with you. So again, if you're not changing colors and you joined right here, you start where you are, just chain 3 and double crochet in each stitch. Don't forget your chain 1 spaces too. You will have 7 double crochet before you get to your corner space, where the rest of us are going to start with our new color. Row 4. I'm back to white. I am joining my color with a slip stitch and a chain 3 in the corner space. Chain 3 that counts as a double crochet begins every single row. If you didn't change colors, you've already double crocheted into, you chained 3 here. Double crochet, double crochet, double crochet in the chain 1 space, double crochet, double crochet, double crochet. You have 7 double crochets including your chain 3 already. You can just work a typical solid double crochet corner into the corner. 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. If you joined your color like me and you chain 3, that's your first double crochet of the row. You can finish the corner with double crochet, chain 2, and 2 double crochet. Remember, the solid double crochet rows or the even rows have 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet in the corner. This is a solid double crochet stitch row, so all you are doing is double crocheting in the top of every single stitch, double crocheting in the chain 1 space, and when you get to the corner, 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. So this is the easy peasy row. There's really barely any counting. You just want to make sure that you don't forget to double crochet in those little chain 1 spaces. And I'm not even bothering with the chain. I'm just double crocheting right into the space, right over top of everything. I'm working over top of my tails. This is a weave it in as you go kind of little pattern. So double crochet in the top of every single stitch, double crochet right into the chain 1 space. It looks like this, so 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet in the corner space, and then pull back, make sure you don't miss the top of that first double crochet, a double crochet in each stitch, a double crochet in each chain 1 space, all the way across. And if we had 11 stitches in each side at the end of the previous row, we will have 15 stitches on each side at the end of this row. So that's 2 in each corner on top of the 11 that we had from the previous row. So 3, 1, 3, 1, 3. That's 11 plus 2 new ones in each corner. That gives you 15. 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet in the corner. When you leave the corner, don't forget to pull back on that last stitch because you don't want to miss this little guy right here. Double crochet in each stitch and space all the way across. Don't forget your corners, and I'll catch up with you at the end. After you finish your last corner and you start double crocheting in each stitch and space, if you began the row as a solid pattern, so a solid color pattern version, then your chain 3 is right here. You work your last corner, 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet in each of the last 3 stitches. Don't forget to double crochet into that last chain 1 space, and then you can join with a slip stitch to the top of your chain 3. For the rest of us, we've got a couple more stitches left to go, so that's a double crochet in each stitch across that second last shell, a double crochet into that last chain 1 space, and a double crochet into each of those stitches across that last shell. So 1 in the top of the chain 3 and 1 in each of the tops of those remaining 2 double crochet stitches. Then we get up to where we started the row, join with a slip stitch to the top of that chain 3. That was our second even row using the solid double crochet stitch. You've got 15 double crochet stitches across each side. You've got 4 chain 2 spaces. So you have no other spaces other than your chain 2 corners, and 15 double crochet across each side. If you're changing colors fast enough, you can hook up in the next corner. If you are not changing colors, if you are working the solid pattern, you are right here. You join with a slip stitch to the top, or I should say you join with a slip stitch to the top of your chain 3. You are going to slip stitch into the next stitch. Why? Because this stitch is the one directly on top of the middle stitch from the shell of the row previous. So slip stitch into the next stitch, and you can start your shell stitch row. Chain 3, 2 double crochet into the same stitch, chain 1, and then skip 3 stitches. And you will have a shell right here before you get to the corner. So chain 3, 2 double crochet, chain 1 right here. Skip 3 stitches, 3 double crochet, chain 1 in the next stitch. You'll have 3 stitches left to skip and you will be in the corner, and that's where the rest of us will hook up. I am back to blue. If you're changing colors, you're joining your yarn with a slip stitch and a chain 3 in that corner space. Chain 3 counts as a double crochet, as does the chain 3 in every single row. If you didn't change colors, you've already got shell, chain 1, shell, chain 1, and now you can work 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet, chain 1 into the corner. Or if you're just starting here with me, you chain 3, that counts as your first double crochet. 2 more double crochet, and that's our first shell. Chain 2 for the corner, and 3 more double crochet. The pattern will look pretty familiar now. Shell, chain 2, shell, chain 1 in the corner. That is a standard corner for a shell stitch row. 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet, chain 1. Then, same thing as the previous odd row. We are going to skip 3 stitches, find the next one, and work 3 double crochet, chain 1 into it. And that is all you're doing all the way around. 3 double crochet, chain 1, that's the little shell pattern. 3 double crochet, chain 1. The chain 1 is a little spacer in between. That keeps our stitch count going. You skip the next 3 stitches, find the next one, and work 3 double crochet, chain 1 into it. If you find yourself lost, or you are kind of a little bit confused or something, you're not sure, maybe your eyes are playing tricks on you and you're not sure if you skipped 3, just look down to the stitch below and make sure it's the stitch sitting directly on top of the middle stitch of a shell. So that's the middle of the stitch of a shell, and this is the stitch that I just worked my next shell into. 3 double crochet, don't forget your chain 1, and you just keep skipping 3 stitches until you get yourself into the next chain 2 corner. And this is how the shell stitch row looks for every row, every shell stitch row hereafter. It's just the only thing that changes is that your number of 3 stitches that you're skipping just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So when you get to the end, you work your last shell, chain 1, you skip 3 stitches, and oop, you're into a corner. Corners, say it with me, shell, chain 2, shell, chain 1. It's your standard corner, 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet, chain 1. And it starts all over. Skip 3 stitches, find the next one, work 3 double crochet, chain 1 into it. Skip 3 stitches, find the next one, 3 double crochet, chain 1. When you get to a corner, shell, chain 2, shell, chain 1. Easy peasy, my dears. I will hook up with you back at the beginning. After you've worked your last corner, if you have not changed color, you skipped 3 stitches, worked shell, chain 1 into the next stitch, and then if you skip 3 stitches, you'll be back at that first shell you made where you began with a chain 3. You get to join with a slip stitch to the top of your chain 3. The rest of us are finishing off that last side, skip 3 stitches, work 3 double crochet, chain 1, 3 double crochet into the next stitch, and we've got one more. So this is what the non-color changing people did before at the beginning of the row. They already did all this because the non-color changing version or the solid color version of this pattern always kind of begins in the middle of a row, no big deal. And the rest of us, if you're starting in a corner, you just work with the color or the corner instructions to begin, and the rest of the row, it's really the same for all of us. It just depends on where you're starting. You have to change your mind a little bit depending on that. Join with a slip stitch to the top of the chain 3, however, is the same for everybody. And you've got 5 shells and 4 chain 1 spaces and 4 chain 2 spaces in total. So 5 shells per side, 4 chain 1 spaces per side. Your chain 2 corners don't change. So 20 shells in total, 16 chain 1 spaces in total, 4 chain 2 spaces in total. But if you're keeping track of explicit stitch count, we had 15 stitches per side in the previous row, including our chain ones as stitches. We are now at 19 stitches all the way across. So you have 15 double crochet represented by your shells, but you're including your chain ones, so that's 4 more. That gives you 19 stitches all the way across between your chain 2 corners. So as long as everybody's in the same place, you can fasten off if you're changing colors. If you're not changing colors, you are right here, same thing, chain 3 right where you began, and start double crocheting in each stitch and each chain 1 space up to the corner, just like you did in this previous row. So double crochet in every single stitch, double crochet in the chain 1 spaces. You can get into the corner and the rest of us will hook up with you there. For our 6th and final row, and just a reminder, if you want to make this bigger, you just want to keep repeating the odd, even, odd, even, odd, even rows, or shell stitch, solid double crochet, shell stitch, solid double crochet, over and over and over and over again. And you can just keep going and going and going. If you are doing the solid color, you are right here. You are going to chain 3 and then double crochet into every stitch and space all the way up to the corner where the rest of us will catch up with you. I'm changing colors once again. I'm joining my yarn with a slip stitch in the corner space. And I'm going to chain 3. Chain 3 always counts as a double crochet. And on a solid double crochet row, corners are 2 double crochet, chain 2, and 2 double crochet. So 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. Of course, the chain 3 counts as a double crochet. If you're working the solid color version, you are busy working your way across, double crochet in every stitch and space. When you get up to the corner, you just work 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. And remember, when you're leaving the corner, just make sure you don't miss the top of that first stitch and get every single stitch and chain 1 space all the way across. So double crochet in every stitch and space. When you get to the chain 2 corner, 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. We are on a solid double crochet row. This is row 6. We are almost done. As you finish your last corner of 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet, you're still working that solid double crochet stitch. If you are doing the solid color, your last full stitch is in that space before you get to the chain 3 that began the row. That would be right here. Join with a slip stitch to the top of the chain 3. The rest of us keep on going. Our last stitch is in the top of this last double crochet in that shell. Our chain 3 is in the corner. You can slip stitch to join and fasten off, snip your yarn, weave in your tails. That is it for the May square. Like I said, you can keep going and alternating between the shell stitch row and the solid double crochet row. You can make this infinitely larger if you want to. This pattern does size up quite nicely. But there you go. That is the framed granny. It really does look like little framed shell stitches. And just quickly, I thought I would show you this before we head out to the end of the video. If you're using the solid double crochet color, this is what it looks like on close-up. So here's your chain 3 that began row 1, and you join with a slip stitch to the top of the chain 3. You start the solid double crochet row by just chaining 3 and then double crocheting into every stitch. Corners are all the same. You would join at the top of the chain 3. When you are joining on a solid double crochet row and you either want to carry colors or you're just not changing colors, to start a new shell stitch row, remember you're always slip stitching into the next stitch. Then chain 3, 2 double crochet in the same place. The solid double crochet row, always just start right where you joined. Just chain 3 from where you joined and then start double crocheting. But shell stitch row, you always slip stitch into the next stitch and then start your shell. And the whole point of that is to make sure that there's an uninterrupted line of the middle stitch of the shell, always is the indicator of where your next shell goes. So just a little reminder, whether you're making it a solid color or you're doing the whole carry color thing like I did here. See me carrying my color all the way up there. I always slip stitch into the next stitch to start the shell stitch row. If it's a solid double crochet, you just start where you are and continue. And that is the framed granny. I really love this one. I mean, I know I say that every month. I really love this one. I can't decide. I know sometimes you get into a granny square pattern and you start playing with colors, and if you're like me, you get one going and maybe you're about 3 or 4 rows in and you think, oh, I wonder what it would look like if I did this, you know? That's how this square worked in my head. It's just that delightful, familiar, basic stitch work, the shells, solid double crochets, and just changing where you put that row of familiar, simple stitch work. You change where you change colors, or you don't change colors at all, and you get a square that looks absolutely different than its neighbor, and yet it's all the same pattern. I just love crochet, and I just love granny squares. And I hope you enjoyed making that granny square along with us. We will see you soon here on the Jayda InStitches show. Until then, stay safe, stay crafty, and have an awesome week. Bye, guys.
Hi, everybody. Mr. InStitches here. Thank you for watching today. Here are some of our other videos you might be interested in. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe.